praise and push, right? I say, you guys need to learn how to praise yourselves, right? Find the moment of accomplishment in the thing that you've done, and then recognize where you can push yourself. I said, because no one else is going to do either of those things for you in life, right? Once I'm gone from this earth, no one's going to say, hey, I'm proud of you, right? And you'll be chasing that moment. I said, but if you can teach yourself how to be proud of yourself, the thing that you did, right, for dragging that horse across the finish line and finishing the thing, right, you can say, I'm proud of that. But acknowledge that that is not as good as you can get. And that's where you got to push yourself, because people are always looking to push you down. But you have to be able to push back into the world and say, no, I can do that. Don't tell me I can't do that, right? I know I have it in me to do that. And if I can, I'm going to figure out how to do it, because that's the goal I have for myself. So I try to break it down, because, again, if you want to inspire that curiosity, you have to do it through that positive self-building, and that's persistent through everything in life. I'm like, from cleaning your room to taking care of yourself, to work, to whatever it is, like that's that balance you have to build for yourself.
Welcome, everybody, back to the Full Battery Media Podcast. I am your host, Sean Trace. I'm happy to be with you. I've got an awesome guest with me today. Would you like to tell people who you are and a little bit about what you do, man?
Yeah. So my name is Nick Priest, and I work in healthcare marketing. And so, for the majority of my career, I have worked in pharmaceutical, rare disease, and now medical device advertising and marketing. I worked for agencies, and I work currently in-house at GE Healthcare. And it is a pretty incredible job. It provides you the opportunity to be creative and, create content and, be a part of the thing that, makes a lot of creatives tick, while also, kind of doing something a little altruistic and helping people, identify the things that are going to help them from a health perspective.
I love that, man. I love a couple layers of that, because we see content everywhere in our lives these days. Content marketing is essentially marketing now. I mean, it is really where it's at. And people forget, though, that it's still an instrument for change. I come from an educational background, and I firmly believe that content marketing should be a type of education where we're teaching people and helping them get better skills to interact with our world, to learn about art, music, science, health, whatever it might be that we want to share with them. If you're a musician, educate people on great music. If you are, working in the health sector, educate people on how to be healthy. To me, there is so much that can be done with content. But I wanted to ask you some questions, because you've got such a cool background, and you talk a lot about curiosity and childlike wonder, which I love, because I used to teach kids. When did you personally feel like you lost that, and how'd you get it back with your content?
Yeah. It's funny. You can easily lose it, right? And I think, especially in the early 2000s, when clickbait really became the tactic for folks, I think it became about capturing numbers and not about capturing people's attention.
Right.
To your point about, the idea of, educating people, right, is that it stopped being about that. It stopped being about sharing information. It started being about, let me have your attention, right? And I think that we even see that now still today, is that, apps like TikTok and, Instagram, right? And even, social media platforms like Facebook, they're so quick to just try and get your attention in that scroll, right?
Yeah.
That they aren't taking the time to educate. And now the audience is becoming so focused on the dopamine hit, completely unaware, right, that's what they're chasing, that they're missing things, and we're actually building our own echo chambers, whichever direction they stand. Because you got an echo chamber full of, Twinkies and Nutter Butters, right? It doesn't matter what it is. And we're not chasing education. I say to my kids and to my nephew all the time, I'm like, you live in a time as a kid where you have unfettered access to quite literally almost anything that you could possibly want to know. And yet I find you watching Minecraft tutorials, right? I'm like, fine, that's
Right.
fine. It's all well and good, I guess. But like, when I was a kid, right? And I know I was a bookworm. I was a bit of a nerd. Fine, whatever, right?
You
But
made
like,
both.
I would go and like throughout the week, like make a list of like things that I was like, oh, I have a question about this, right? Oh,
Yeah.
dinosaurs or whatever, right? And then I would get on my bike and I would bike up to the library and I would grab the friggin' Dewey Decimal Card System and go looking, right? But like that's how I had to access information for years, right? And kids don't have to do that, right? It's like,
No.
dude, pull out your phone, pull out your iPad, hop on your computer because you've got 30 devices in your house,
Right.
and like let yourself down a rabbit hole of curiosity, And so to actually answer your question, after a few years of working, I realized that I was just kind of like processing requests, right? I wasn't asking why, right? And I remember, I had a boss who was like, listen, I don't like making get. And I was like, what is that? Right. And he's like, people will come to you and ask for things and they don't even know why they're asking for it. They just know that it's a metric they're tracking.
Right.
And it's your job to ask them why they need it. At the end of the day, you will probably still have to make it, but you will force them to have to ask the question why to themselves.
Sure.
And that's a gift that you can give them as they move through life, right? And like, as I sat with this, I was like, you're right. Like, why are we not asking why more often, right? Why are we just taking everything as is and just processing, like cogs in a gear system,
Yeah.
So that was kind of like what the impetus of, the whole thing kind of kicked off as.
It's interesting too, because what you're talking about is you're preaching to the choir right now for me. One of the things that I've been looking at, it is something that is very front of mind in anything that I'm doing content wise, is this. I've had, when I go and approach people for my daughter's YouTube channel, Alani's Little World, podcast, for whatever it might be, I sit there and I think about the great conversations. So I had this one guy the other day and he was like, tell me your metrics, tell me your numbers. And I'm like, it's a new, it's not going to be where you want it to be. Like, if that's the question we're leading off with, I will tell you right now, it's not where you want it to be. And yet, this is the conversation I want to have, because I think that the knowledge you have is so interesting. And you know what? And I'm the type of person that I'm relentless. Like, I will keep this up. I'm not the type of guy that, in 2 months, this podcast is going to be done. No, dude, like, that's not who I am. And that's just the type. My wife, we just finished a music project that was 3 years in the making. And everyone went bailed on it. And I was dragging that dead body to the finish line. But when it got there, it's one of the best things that we've done yet. It's such a masterpiece of a song. And that's, to me, important. And so when I talk to people, like, that song, again, the same type of thing. The numbers were not there. The promise wasn't there. But we created absolute art. And I'm not saying every single podcast is absolute art. But I'm saying that when you focus on the right things, and when you focus on educating people, and when you focus on, like, when I go about creating questions for people, I try to I use AI. I use ChatGPT and Claude to help me kind of scrub data and to look at people's backgrounds. And then I'm like, all right, you guys, it's way overthinking than this. 10-year-old is getting this information. How can we dumb this the fuck down? How can we take this down to the lowest level, and people can get something out of it? Because to me, that's the educational point. And what actionable questions can I create that people can actually go, wow, that episode gave me something I can do.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? Is to take the notion of education and feed it to people in a way that they're currently receiving information, right? And I think that's why so many folks are latching onto content marketing, right? Because they're like, oh, there's a story in here that I'm willing to listen to, right? There are sound bites in here that really attracted me. And then all of a sudden I knew X, Y, and Z, right? And people who aren't storytellers are finally catching on to the importance of storytelling, right? And that's like has kind of like been my shtick, right? Is use curiosity, use that why as the way in to hook people, right? It's not clickbait, it's interest, right? Drive interest, and then open their world to that space, that topic, whatever it is, right? And it's so important, and that's why I say, like, you have to take that playbook from kids, right? Like, take that page and be like, lead with curiosity. Don't lead with because I want. Don't lead with because I don't like. Right? Don't lead with anger or frustration. Right? Lead with curiosity. It's how kids literally
Yeah.
move through the world. Right? What's that? Why? 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 What's that? Why?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Answer the question, engage. There's yes, it feels frustrating because our expectations as adults are different, right? We've been given this responsibility, and we don't harness it for what it could be used for. We conform to the system, whatever that system might be. And there's a certain sense of irony in that I like to point out to people, which is, never forget that any system that exists was created by people. Therefore, it can be changed by people. And as long as we continue to ask why, and we continue to be curious, and we continue to evolve, then guess what? Over time, those systems will change, right? And they will change to fit the need of society, of people, or of that segment of people, or whatever it might be. And people need to be open to that, right? And of course, change is one of the hardest things that we have to do as creatures, but and it's funny. Last night I was talking to my kids, because my kids hate cleaning their rooms, right? Like any kid, right? And I'm trying to teach them this idea of praise and push, right?
I love that.
I say, you guys need to learn how to praise yourselves, right? Find the moment of accomplishment in the thing that you've done, and then recognize where you can push yourself. I said, because no one else is going to do either of those things for you in life, right? Once I'm gone from this earth, no one's going to say, hey, I'm proud of you, right?
Yeah.
And you'll be chasing that moment. I said, but if you can teach yourself how to be proud of yourself for the thing that you did, right? For dragging that horse across the finish line and finishing the thing, right? You can say, I'm proud of that, but acknowledge that that is not as good as you can get. And that's where you got to push yourself, because people are always looking to push you down.
Right.
But you have to be able to push back into the world and say, no, I can do that. Don't tell me I can't do that.
Yeah.
Right. I know I have it in me to do that. And if I can, I'm going to figure out how to do it, because that's the goal I have for myself. So I try to break it down, because again, if you want to inspire that curiosity, you have to do it through that positive self-building,
Yeah.
And that's persistent through everything in life. I'm like, from cleaning your room to taking care of yourself, to work, to whatever it is. Like, that's that balance you have to build for yourself.
One of the things too, and I'm gonna push on content, and maybe people can be like, that's the wrong bit of advice. I am tired of people telling me of like, chase the algorithm, chase this, chase what you think. For my daughter's channel, Lonnie's Little World, we started interviewing all of these scientists, like started mixed podcast dash kids stuff, where Ilani gets to meet these cool scientists and we interview them kind of podcast style. We're kind of doing some green screen stuff. It's cool. It's new. No one else is kind of doing that right now. And you know what? It's freaking fun, and she enjoys it. She likes talking to these scientists. She likes talking to these people. And then I talked to some people who were like, you're doing your channel wrong. You're going the wrong path because, and I was just like, because you deviated from the norm and you went left when the algorithm wants you to go right, stay on the right. And I was like, dude, my daughter's talking to cool scientists. If the algorithm's not recording, rewarding us for that, the algorithm sucks. Like, at that point in time, that's where it's at. And so for me, what I think we should be doing is not chasing the algorithm, but chasing great content, chasing I will do that. My daughter just popped in to tell me to turn off the lights. chasing great meaning, chasing
Yeah.
great meaning. Like my little like person that reminds me of what we're doing is right there. Today, my wife was singing a song, and after all that's going on in the world and all the craziness, she wanted to sing the world. I don't know if I said this. My wife is a famous singer in Vietnam, and so she does cool stuff, and she wanted to do a cover of the song "We Are the World," the old 80s song, because it was
Yeah.
a time where people came together and talked about, all the stuff that was going down and all the drama. And she's like, I think our world needs that type of message right now. I was like, I think so as well. And as I'm filming that, I realize, you know what? Some people might not even, a lot of people probably don't even know what this song is, especially some of the younger generation. But does that
Yeah.
mean that we shouldn't do it? Does that mean we should only focus on the stuff that's going to get us high reward? Or maybe we release something that's actually meaningful or meaningful to us?
Right. Yeah. People, it's funny whenever you hear someone say, hey, man, stick with the algorithm, or hey, man, like this is the way things are. Right. It's like, so what you are is a follower,
Right?
or you're afraid to lead. And that's
Yeah.
okay. Right. Like I'm not knocking you for that, but like you should recognize that in yourself, right? Is that you don't want to lead. Right. You want to, follow the crowd because that's the comfortable path. Right. And I mean, Robert Frost, right? The road less taken, right? Or less traveled. There's beauty in forging a path, right? And no, the goal of forging that path is not because you're looking to be followed. The goal in forging that path is because that is the path you want to take. Right. Because you see beauty down that path, because you see opportunity down that path, because you see whatever it is you see ahead that says, yeah, this way, man. Right. And I think that's like what's beautiful about you guys, YouTube channel right now is you guys are creating something because you see beauty and value in it. Right.
Yeah.
And from that, right, perhaps people will also begin to follow. Like, think about unboxing videos or tutorial videos, right? Like somebody, hey, you know what? Like, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to open this in front of a camera and I'm going to talk about it. And then someone else was like, hey, like that's getting clicks. I'm going to go do that too. And now it's a thing, right? But it's a thing because people made it a thing. It's not like, this is like, again, staying on the content path. This is like, in the early 2000s when people were like, how do we go viral? Right? Like, I'm hiring to make me go viral. You're already going to fail. You're not going to go viral because you want to go viral, right? Like you can't impress upon a group of people an action because you want it to happen in an organic way, right? Like you're naturally making it inorganic by doing that, right?
Right.
It's like that law of science that's like, just by observing something, we're changing it, right?
Yeah.
And people have a hard time acknowledging that, but like, for me, when you create an ecosystem of content, right? Because like that's when you talk about content from a corporate perspective or from a business perspective, right? Like the goal is to create an ecosystem. It's like, well, why? It's like because the goal isn't to go out and like grab someone and shove them down my sales funnel. The goal is to put stuff out into the world that they then find. Right. And then they can build that path for themselves. And eventually they're going to go, yeah, you know what? This is the right choice. I mean, think about how much effort you might put into looking for a consumer-based product. Right. Because like I know that like when I go to like buy a robot vacuum or I go to buy whatever it is, really, like I'm like, okay, like what am I looking for? What's in the market? What's out there? And I wind up doing hours, days, weeks worth of research, depending on, how much money I had to spend. And if at the first touch point, it was a salesperson calling me, I'd be like, yeah, no, we're not talking. I'll do this on my own. I'll inform myself and we'll talk later. Right. And that's kind of really where we are as a society. We're a society of self-curators, right? There's so much content in the world that we're the ones now looking for it. We don't need to be sold. We need to be provided information and educated. And when you do that, when you seed with good information, people will come to you, right?
Yeah.
And then from there, you can take over a natural sales funnel, you can do whatever it is you want to do, but you have to provide a good narrative. You have to provide the content, give it to the people, and the people will figure it out. I know people will disagree with that, right? They'll say no, force them down the hole and give them what they don't realize they need, right? And I would say that's a path towards hypercapitalism in which everyone loses. But I'm just a writer, so
But I agree with you, man, because one of the things too is like you hear people and they just preach about authenticity left and right now. And like, but the thing is they're like, there was this one, I don't know what Adam Sandler movie it was, but Steve Buscemi was trying to play like a high school kid. And he's like,
oh yeah,
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 I'm a high school guy. And it's like,
right,
you just look at him going, it was obvious that he wasn't, and it's
yeah,
like, just like every time I feel like a brand trying to dress themselves up going, yeah, we're authentic. The only one that I see absolutely crushing it right now is Wendy's, and their roasting
mhm,
of the McDonald's CEO for his small bite has been the
yeah,
most brutal highlight I've seen. And I think that they just let their social media department have free reign and just be like, guys, have fun,
yeah.
and they just go to town. But I wanted to ask you this question because a lot of brands literally overcomplicate things.
Mhm.
For you, what's the simplest version of great content that actually works today?
You know what's funny is that if this was 5 years ago, I'd say I would say it would be the website and email,
Uh-huh.
right? But the world has changed so fast in 5 years that we're still trying to figure out what the best way to get a hold of people really is, right? Um, because email doesn't work the way it used to, right? I mean, think about how many things that you're subscribed to that you just delete on a daily or weekly basis, right? You don't even open it,
Right.
and for companies where they value the click-through rates, right? They value the open rates. They're like, oh my gosh, like no one's opening our emails, right? No one's
Yeah.
reading this stuff, or it's every week it's dropping off, or whatever it is. I think that what has to work is a better strategy going forward than today, which is we don't know who we're talking to, right? Or we know a general audience that we're talking to. We don't really know our audiences, plural. And we're not building I'll call it a tree of content opportunity for folks where people can find their way in based on who they are, right? Because think of the touch points, right? I mean, like I might see a brand for the first time on Instagram, and be like, "What's this?" I might see a random ad on a billboard and be like, "What's that?" Right? Like there is content is everywhere. Like we are
Yeah.
saturated in content, and it's getting worse every day. That like where do I even look? And it changes by market, right? So in the med device healthcare space, we're talking to healthcare providers, we're talking to hospitals, right? Like the products that we're typically talking about are not really focused on by patients. But is there an opportunity, right, in a market where patients are constantly self-educating before they head in for any kind of procedure, right? I want to know what equipment's being used, right? Like, is that where things are going? Maybe. I don't know. I almost hate the idea of that because it feels like you're almost over commercializing something that shouldn't be commercialized, right?
Yeah.
In that particular space, right? But think about how many marketing dollars Apple puts into beauty shots, right? They make your mouth water with the sex appeal of hard metal I've ever seen in my life. Um, and so it's a hard question to answer, and one that I think is going to be slightly different for everyone. But I truly believe that if you lead with true authenticity, to your point, right, and you educate and you put the information out into the world at the right places for your audience, you're gonna succeed. You're
Mhm.
gonna just by default, you're gonna. Uh, And a lot of brands don't do that. In fact, I would even argue that the true authentic brands we don't talk about enough.
Yeah.
Because they aren't dumping millions and millions of dollars into marketing material. They know who their audience is. They're leaving their content where it needs to be left, and they're stepping back. And then you have people who try too hard, like McDonald's, clearly. Trying to be authentic in that moment, and then literally being mocked by millions of people because of it.
Yeah.
I mean, and look, like, that is actually a great example of placating people and not being true to the asking the why question, right? Is that there were at least 3 people behind that camera who all said, "Great take, Mr. CEO, boss man. You nailed that."
This is the best thing ever. Yeah.
Honestly, like, I mean, as someone who has worked with C-level executives, who has stood behind a camera and been like, "Put your hands down. I need you to put your eyes here. I need you to take a deep breath," right? Like, you need to, like, make them not look authentic, but you need to relax them so they can be authentic, right? Is that no one stopped that man and said, "This looks like you're a dead person being inhabited by a robot," right? You aren't, like, dude, like, you might not like McDonald's, and that's fine. Like, I'm not going to knock you for being healthy, right? But, like,
Right.
if you are going to sit in front of this camera and market this new sandwich, take a bite out of it, my guy, right? Like,
Yeah.
genuinely, even despite his more stale appearance, if he had genuinely taken a bite of that burger, no one would have mocked it as hard as they did.
No.
It
It was not a bite. It was brutal. It wasn't a bite. And you can tell he doesn't eat burgers, man. It's like, that's
Absolutely.
obvious.
Yeah, it was the most performative action I've ever seen in my life. And we were so quick to praise that we don't push, right?
Yeah.
We don't say, "Hey, listen, like, I know you're the boss, and I know I'm just like the guy behind the camera, but that didn't look good," right? And, like,
Yeah.
I'm being honest with you, like, you can be happy with it, like, that's the take you want, that's why you're paying me, I'll go and we'll cut it and we'll do the thing. Or you can be like, "Hey, that just didn't look. Can we do it again for realsies? Because, like, otherwise I think it's not going to sell." And there might be someone in the room who's saying, "No, that was great. You did great." Right? And so then it's down to the person to actually admit whether or not they feel that was a good thing. But I think more people need to take a step back and go, is what I've done good? Is it going to do good? Is it going to be a good thing? Or did I just make a thing to make a thing, to check a box and say we did that, for the metrics, for the algorithm, for the KPI, right? Like, we did it. Okay, but what did we do? What did we do? I bet you'd actually see a drop in how much content is produced on an annual basis if more people thought like that. Because then people would be still producing content, but they would be working to produce better content than just produce as much content as they can.
I'm 100% with you. And for anyone that comes through the doors for my company, like, that is one of my actual clients, not like a client that a client has contracted me to work on. For any of my actual clients, I push back hard on something that I think is horrible, on something that I think is spam, because I see so many people using AI scripts. And you know what? People don't want to be spammed by AI scripts. Like, the other day, I used AI to help me to get some cool points, but they were points that I think it's something I just posted on LinkedIn. I'm driving down the street and I look over, and this kid he's got an Action 360 above him. He's got some type of small Canon mirrorless pointed back at him on a Cyclo. He's DJing while the guy rides the bike behind him. It's like the rickshaw where he's sitting in the front. He's DJing in the front of the bike. And I was like, I just made a video. I was like, if you're not doing content like this guy, like, you're doing it wrong. And then I thought, like, I brainstormed some ideas. I got, AI to help me kind of dial in my bullet points better. And then I made a video while I'm out walking with my daughter. We walked into a 7-Eleven. We make it. And I was just like, and then I was like, and this is my motorcycle because I ride bike everywhere. And I love it, you know? And I was like, and I'm not making as many videos, but stuff like that, people are like, this was fun. This is fun. This is interesting. I actually liked this. I enjoyed watching. I get to see a little bit of Sean's life and Sean's world. And I don't spam people, you know? And I think that versus I could be, here are the top 5 ways that you can be creating content that hits right at the right time, you know? Dude, no one wants to watch that shit. Like, no one wants to be too dialing into that. It's not what people want. And at the end of the day, I think that we got to stop doing that. And we got to stop thinking that that's okay because
Right.
it's not really okay, you know? And I mean, I think that what we can do is start asking questions of, is this adding like a net positive to the people that are watching, you know? Is it
Yeah.
giving them something actionable? Is it giving them something that they can do with their day that's worth their time? You know, and I try to think that too, like, you know, when my daughter, you're talking earlier about kids, and I am so with you. Like my daughter, she gets into some crap sometimes, and I just sit there and go, you know what? This is not something that's actually really something I want you doing or watching. And we kind of tone back from it, you know, and step back from it. And what I have to remember is that, you know, at the end of the day, are we creating something that's making this world a better place? Are we filling it up with noise? Because
Yep.
I don't want to be part of noise. And I think most people out there don't want to be part of the noise. They just don't realize they don't want to be part of the noise. And
Right.
that's the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. If we all subscribe to the notion of leaving the world better than we found it, then I think that, you know, we would operate differently. But we don't. We operate off of the bottom line. Right.
Yeah.
And that, I think, you know, intrinsically is going to hurt more people than it helps.
Yeah.
My actual hope with AI is that it kind of drops it affects the algorithm for those kinds of videos that you're talking about, right? The, you know, how to make top 5 content or what is it? And, you know, all those like little niche videos that wind up being 5 to 15 minutes long that are mostly AI driven videos to begin with, right? But now people don't have to go and search for those videos. They can ask AI to do the search for them and then to aggregate the information, right? And I think that if we teach our kids and, you know, people in general, but, you know, our kids too, how to still be critical thinkers while leveraging AI, I think that's where we're going to see the greatest level of success, right? So I have, oh yeah, I was just saying, I have writers on my team, you know, who are like, oh my gosh, like, are our jobs going to be replaced with AI? And I'm like, well, only if you let it, right? Like only if you let someone replace you with AI, because the machine isn't going to replace you. Someone else is going to replace you with the machine, right?
Yeah.
So how do you use the machine to be better, right? And so I say to my writers, I'm like, imagine if you had a junior copywriter with you, right? I'm like, think of AI like you still have to input the creative brief. You still have to think of the strategy. You know the client. You know that the ask. You know what. I said, input that information. Give it to your junior copywriter and ask your junior copywriter to do something. I said, and then you, as the senior copywriter, you're going to read it, edit it, proof it, work it, you know, maybe ask it more questions, and then you're going to refine it, and then you're going to move it forward, right?
Yeah.
I said, don't let the machine do the work. Don't let it do the strategy, because it's not gonna, right? So I've been using, you know, AI now for a couple of years, and what I found is that despite it being extremely useful, it tends to build a very personalized echo chamber for you. Right? It tends to like validate, you know, you.
You're doing
you know,
a great job, Sean. Thank you.
right.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
That's right. And I noticed the more I use it, the more it would refine itself to me. And so I challenge it very often to keep it from, you know, being overly, you know, in that way. And I also remind myself that it's doing that. And that way, because again, echo chambers are really easy to listen to, right? It's like, yeah, you do believe in what I believe in. Absolutely, I'm right. This validates me, right? And we have to be careful of that kind of stuff, you know? But there's a future with AI in it. And, you know, it's either, you know, some twisted version of Skynet, or it's what we make it. Because again, human beings built it, Like it's not like it was dropped off here and left for us to figure out. Like we created it, and so that means that we're its keeper. Like anything else, we're in control of that system. So how far are you going to let the system get out of our control before it becomes a problem?
Yeah. I wanted to ask you one more question because
Yeah.
I love where we're going with this. Like, if someone's starting from scratch today, no audience, no brand, what would you tell them to focus on in their first 90 days?
Knowing who they are and what they want. You really have to know who you are. And that can evolve. Like, I think like people get so set in stone with things, right?
Yeah.
So my wife and I also contribute to our local, government as a community, thing. And, when you talk about the creation of anything, people get so firm in the existence of the thing.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like,
Right.
and so like, I mean, for a long time, people would say this is a living document, right? It's like all documents are living because we wrote them, right? Like it's literally not in stone, right? Like we've evolved past the carving of things into the permanence of that, and we can change whatever the hell we want, right? Like that's the beauty of it. So the only restriction is your capacity for understanding and your capability of autonomy, and so define who you are, because when you define who you are and what you want out of the thing that you're going to create, you then have a much clearer path of how you want to move forward, right? Because at the end of the day, Sean, right? Anything you create is just a box.
Yeah.
Right. But if you know who you are and you know what you're saying, then the only question is how that fits into the box, right? How it shows up on social media, how it shows up, on YouTube, how it shows up, on Billboard, wherever it's going to show up. It's just a box.
Yeah.
And that's why strategic thinking, critical thinking is so important to narrative content development, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to be willing to think hard, and that's the most amorphous thinking that can take place, right? I actually just went through this exercise the other day with some colleagues. We were trying to figure something out, and they were very quick to try and hone the words that were being written down. And I was like, those are just thinking words.
Yeah.
And they were like, what the hell are you talking about? Right. And I was like, those might not be the words that we use as we move forward with this project, but those words help us establish the strategic context for the thing that we're going to make. Right.
Yeah.
And that helps us align to the foundational elements to drive whatever the messaging might be. And yeah, some of those words might come forward. All those words might come forward. Right. But that's the box. Stay out of the box for a minute. Right. Stay over here with me in this really uncomfortable space and just talk about what you want. And when we're aligned to that, then we can walk forward together. So I would really task folks in the first 90 days of anything to really think long and hard strategically about what they want and who they are. And devising a plan and devising a strategy. And again, that doesn't mean I'm going to do 20 emails a year. I'm going to do social media. Those things come later. Those are all the boxes that you're going to fill. They're all there for you. They're always going to be there for you. They're going to change over time, right? There'll be new boxes that come in and old boxes that die away. That's fine, right? No one uses newspaper anymore, right? People aren't really advertising. Like those things have changed. They're boxes, right? Mm-hmm. It's the strategy. It's what you stand for, what you believe in, and the message you want to move forward with. And that could mean your product. That could mean your campaign. That could mean, any particular thing. Because again, there's still more boxes. Mm-hmm. But you have to be willing to take that step back and just stop yourself and have a very honest conversation about who you are and what you want.
I love it. Where can people find out more about you and what you do?
Oh my gosh, I guess just Google me. I can give you a link to my portfolio site. And they can find me there. I live in Burlington, Massachusetts, in the U.S. So if folks Google Nick Priest Burlington, all kinds of information will come up, because, like I said, I I do a lot of work with the local town government. So I'm kind of everywhere there. And then my contact info is all in that. And I'm always willing to talk to folks, because I think, like you said, sharing information and educating is more than half the battle.